Right hook? No, I'm just playing. I'm not violent. So disagreements, like I feel like, honestly, I read this book. What was the name of this joint? I might have to tell you guys at a different time. But it was a book by the Navy SEALs though. And I think the part that stuck, it was not really a long book, but the part that stuck out to me the most with relationships. And repeat the question for me one time. I want to answer it right.
When it comes to disagreements, how do you handle them?
Disagreements. So what I had learned from this book, and I feel like it was my biggest problem up to that point, and I think I read it like 3 or 4 years ago, was being accountable for your actions first before you start talking about somebody else's, you know? So I feel like that to me was a changing point in my life because in order for it to be a disagreement, it's always two sides of it. You know what I'm saying? So whether your part in it was 1% of it or 100%, you had some part in it. You know, it don't matter what it was. You know, so addressing what you did wrong first is how I've started to deal with disagreements and situations, you know, starting with me and then working from there. And to me, it's worked wonders, you know, because you don't go into it, at least the person you know, discussing these disagreements with doesn't think that it's just a thing to hammer on them. You know, it's really about getting to the root of the issue, which is both of you.
Disagreements is something I try to stay, if not really stay away from. I don't really like to argue at all with people. I try to hold debates, but disagreements are always, I always try to meet disagreements with trying to find the middleman, you know, trying to find the common ground between the disagreements, because oftentimes I can be very big-headed and be, you know, very biased, and a lot of times it's can actually overtake how you think, you know, and really what's best for you. So I think really it's a matter of making sure that you humble yourself, you put yourself into the situation, you take yourself back, you really find a common ground of what your guys are going through. If you're willing to, you know, to agree to disagree, then that's fine. But if you're stuck on your ways, then at that point, you don't even need to be in that situation no more.
If I'm with my homies, you know, we may argue about it. If I'm disagreeing with a lady, someone I'm intimate with, I do my best not to argue. And so, you know, we usually breathe it out first and then talk about it. Breathing it out first is the key element to talking about it. If I'm, you know, operating outside of either one of those spaces, you know, there's no telling how the disagreement will get handled.
What is breathing it out?
You know, it's pretty literal. You take a second and you gather yourself and you tell the person, you know, like, we're in a little bit of heat right now, so let's breathe for a second. And you do that a couple of times, then it's easier to talk without, you know, the elevation of voice. I really just do it because I don't like to yell.
Again, I just try to just mute myself a lot of time because I think disagreements, I'll give you a perfect example. So my daughter, she's 23. And so a couple of months ago, we were having like a huge disagreement. And this is my light. This is my everything, you know what I mean? I mean, my son's a whole nother subject, love them all, but my daughter is like, that's my ace. So when we were like, I call it beefing, it was like, yo, this is breaking my heart. Like, it was literally breaking my heart. But I had to stay firm on who I was, and at the same time, I had to be respectful of who she's becoming and who she is.
Agreements with understanding, and understanding that people come from their perspective different from mine. They arrive to perspective and their understanding, their view differently that I have arrived to them. So I understand and I respect how people have come to that. And so I just try to be calm and patient and understanding, and then maybe kind of reminding others to just remain on the goal. So if the goal is the goal is what my kids are going to wear, you know, I try to just, you know, understand my wife wants them to wear this for this reason. I want him to wear this for this reason. Okay, but what is the goal? And what is the priority? And then I kind of use that to work with like goals and resolving conflict and disagreements in any case, whether it's work, home, with anyone.
Man, stress is just like that constant ache in your back. Where it's just like the pressure that you put on yourself, regardless of what other people tell you. It's like a lot of people will tell you from the outside looking in, like, you're doing this, or you're doing that, and you're doing this, you know, but we all make decisions to where we're not fulfilling our full potential, and we know that. So at the end of the day, I feel like stress just comes from knowing that, like, I'm never like 100% because I didn't do every single little thing, like, in every single moment. You get what I'm saying? So stress is like the constant pressure, like being behind yourself, chasing yourself, trying to keep the pace up. I feel like that's what stress is. And coping with that is just understanding that you're meant to be where you at in life. Like, don't ever think that you're not where you're supposed to be at. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you might be in a certain place in life because of the moves that you're making or how you maneuvering. So it's up to you to actually make where you want to be and where you're supposed to be the same place. You get what I'm saying? So this is where you want to be, but this is where you are. But right here, there's nothing wrong with this right here because you are where you're supposed to be at. You get what I'm saying? But you have to close that gap. You know what I mean? The gap just don't close over time and it don't just fall in your lap. So I feel like coping with the stress of like not being at all of my goals already, or just, you know, not fulfilling everything that I want to, is understanding that it's okay and it's all about time and it's all about progress. As long as it's moving, it's nothing wrong. Even if it moves slow, it's still moving. So
yeah. Shit, smoke my weed. I smoke my weed. I be logical. Get out your feelings. Cause stress is an emotion that we all can't escape. It is what it is. We all got it. It's just about how you express that shit to the next. That's what I'm learning, like. And I feel like I didn't understand that in the beginning of life, like on some shit.
Stress, tend to think of stress as this like, this thing that I carry, right? Like, and it's like a mix of expectation from others, expectation of myself, and like my own idea or thought of my ability to fulfill those expectations. And so that could be at workplace stress. It's like, man, you got so many things I got to do. I don't know that I can do them all, or I don't know that I don't know that I can do them all well, or I don't know that I can do them to the expectations of my employer. And so that becomes stressful, right? In a relationship, you have expectations, like either spoken or the more stressful kind of expectations are unspoken, right? It's like, I know you want me to do something. I'm not 100% sure what that is. You haven't communicated it to me. And I'm stressed now because I don't know that I can live into what you think or hope that I am. And so like it becomes burdensome. It becomes heavy. And like, it's like, actually it's one of those things that when you put it on, it grows, right? Like once you begin to, like, there's a certain amount of like natural stress that just happens, right? Like things are just going to be like, they're going to create stress. It's like, it creates this tension, like, and there's a necessity to fulfill certain tasks and things based on what you said you could do. But there's other stresses that like piggyback on that, because we start thinking and making assumptions and having our own expectations, and then our own insecurities begin to speak into expectations, and then the expectation grows. It's like, oh, and then it becomes like this whole backpack like that you put on that's full of gear that you have no idea like when you're supposed to put it down or how to put it down. And in the past, I've dealt with stress in very unhealthy ways. And now I'm learning to have better stress management skills, right? Learn to rest well, to ask for clarity and expectations, to communicate my own expectations, to have realistic expectations of myself, to list out my tasks, right? Like just practical things that I can do that naturally reduce stress, and having a good rhythm to my life instead of being so inundated with work and task and performance, saying, hey, there's things that I need to do, there's things that I want to do, and there's things that I have to do, right? And so trying to find a balance in all of those things, taking care of myself, taking care of my responsibilities, and really trying to do them well. And then honestly, at the end of the day, accepting the reality that I can't control everything. I'm not asked to, I need to, and I'm not capable of doing that, and being okay with that.
Stress. Dang. Stress is being paycheck to paycheck. That's stress for sure. But in a nutshell, I think stress is I wouldn't even say not knowing how you're going to deal with uncomfortable situations, but knowing that you're in an uncomfortable situation and maybe not knowing what the outcome will be, right? So I think the way you deal with that is being as positive as you can about it, thinking about, like, of course, the best outcome, and doing everything in your power to get to it, you know, and what happens from there happens from there. But I think that's the root of it. It's, you know, really just discovering or figuring out how you want it to go and doing whatever it takes to get to that. And then just accepting how it turns out.
I would say stress is a problem or is a thought that we don't know. Well, we don't know the right or wrong of that thought. So it's unknown. So that unknown thought that we're not comfortable with can, once the world becomes overwhelming, we start feeling stressed because we don't know how the future is going to play out, or whatever the case may be. And so I feel like when I'm stressed, it's just because at that time I don't know, what's going on. So it'll build some stress and some tension within myself. I meditate. Yeah, I'll meditate. I would say my affirmations, my mantras, things like that. Just try to just put on some nice music to breathe, things like that, calm myself down so I can just think more clearly, kind of slow down all these thoughts that can kind of just start popping out of nowhere.
To me, like if I could, the opposites of peace and love, stress, it's like they're completely polar opposites. And how do I deal with it was the question. I mean, I try to read things that's gonna create a narrative or a dialogue within myself that I could kind of wiggle around whatever it is, you know, meditate, try to quiet. Again, like I'm an only child, so I'm not a person that's like needs to be around a bunch of people to be introspective. My father used to say, if you don't go within, you'll go without. And so it's like, if you can't go within yourself and try to figure out what it is, you'll go without what you need to, you know, get to that next whatever phase or next level it is that you're trying to achieve, or that misunderstanding that you're trying to dissolve. You know, if you can't like start with you, like how you expect for somebody else to go ahead and meet you anywhere in that conversation.
Stress is just really like a lot of things going wrong at the same time. Built up anxiety. Yeah, I mean, I think it's necessary to find a way to express yourself, as we were talking about before. And that helps with stress, because stress is really just, I'm a scientist, so I be studying a lot of energy stuff. And stress is really just built up energy. And we have energy, you have to have some form to release it in some way or form or fashion. And so, you know, that's how we have to learn how to deal with stress. And as kids, we deal with stress in different types of ways. We're active, or we might go to the playground or what's have you. But when we're adults, we have to change those ways and do different things like music, or like writing or reading or editing or whatever so have you, right? So that's how I've been learning to deal with stress, is through my music, through my poetry. Yeah.
Somewhat. I'm gonna keep it real, somewhat. Because we not just one thing. I don't believe that we just one thing. We experience a lot. So yeah, I do got to put on multiple masks, multiple roles.
I don't think so. Like I kind of got over that like a cool minute ago. I think I'm authentically myself. But obviously, you know, you talk to certain people a certain type of way. What I mean like that, like of course, I'm not gonna talk to kids the same way I talk to my homeboys and stuff like that. So you know, you got that. You got to know your audience. But I think in terms of like being authentically yourself, in terms of your values, your morals, your beliefs, that doesn't change for anybody. You know, you got to be that 100% of the time. So, no, not 2 to 3 faces.
No, I think that's really something that people do when they're scared, when they don't know how to basically handle people, especially when they don't know themselves. If you have to put on multiple faces, it's basically a way to, it's too much. You have to basically deal with different people with different emotions and different reactions, different ways of thinking, different mindset. It's tiring even if you just think about it, you know? So it's really, you have to approach every situation with the same, not mindset, but with the same type of integrity. You have to make sure that you stick to yourself, you're true to yourself, because if not, you can get lost in people and situations, dealing with things that's not even for you and not even meant for you, and now you find yourself in a bad situation, or a situation you don't want to be in, and now you're trying to figure out why, because those things are not for you.
I have multiple faces. They all get me through different aspects of life. I couldn't tell you how many I wear, but I know they all are useful.
Is love. The core of me is compliance. The core of me is us working together. But as a leader, as a leader at my job, sometimes I have to put on a face that is more direct and more forward and more stern, because that's the environment that I'm in, and I do security for the government. So, you know, my job means life or death to others. So I just can't be all this loving father to everyone, because everyone will leave me if they need a boss. In love, but they need a boss, you know.
When I used to work at In-N-Out, you would, you know what I mean? You gotta be yippity all the time, you know what I mean? And I get it, it's part of the job, but sometimes it's like, bruh, I don't really, I can smirk or something, but I don't feel like putting on a full-blown smile.
Smile check. I used to work there.
She knows what's up. But as far as with my family and friends, no, I'm pretty much the same person. You know, I mean, I think around my friends, I probably, you know, use a bit more of our lingo, if you get what I mean. You know, we can talk about certain stuff, and that's just really just having a different conversation. But as far as putting on a different face, no, I don't do that. And with me DJing, it still kind of comes with it, you know. But for the most part, I really just try to just be me 24/7. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, it's just all about time and place. Like, if I'm at a corporate event, I'm not gonna be like, "What's up, y'all?" I'll be like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" You know what I mean? Not that I'm at the different. I just know how to approach a crowd of people. You know. But yeah.
I don't have to put on faces, but again, going back to being a black man, understanding that everyone's not going to understand you is a part of having to understand that what I do, put on a different voice for certain people, so that I can bring down intimidation level. So I do put on multiple faces, not to satisfy anyone, but to understand that I can't do business in my football voice, and I can't do football in my business voice. So I have to, you know who I'm talking to, and understand that they may not understand a particular phase that I may have.
Switching. So yeah, definitely, like in the past, like now I work for, a different organization. It's like black led, and there's black people there, and we fight for black issues, so I can be myself. So and I enjoy that. But definitely in the past, even when I was running my startup and I was going to different meetings with people, definitely had to put on like 2 to 3 different faces to be like, a safer version of yourself, or like I would say like a visibly safer version of yourself, or not even a safer version, but like to give the illusion that you are, you know, oh yeah, I'm a non-threatening black person, you know, in public for those meetings and stuff like that. The whole time though, of course, you know, we're all like non-threatening black people, like for the most part. But, you know, you have to put on that face for certain people, especially for like white people, you know, I'm just being honest, for white people, when you going into certain rooms and stuff like that, you can't really be yourself or talk how you talk, or sometimes you got to change how you walk. Like, you know, you get into this thing where you're trying to make this impression and you don't want people to think that, you know, you're threatening in any type of way, or that you'll be confrontational, like overly confrontational and stuff like that. So definitely in the past, I've definitely had a lot of that.
Yeah, I feel like the melanated culture in a whole has experienced depression. It's something that's been embedded into our DNA for the past 400 years. You got to think about it for real, like the concept. Our ancestors for the past 200 years, 400 years, or however long they telling us it was, they woke up knowing that today was going to be a bad day. You get what I'm saying? And that was passed down through generation through generation now to us, to where we have so-called freedom. You get what I'm saying? I feel like depression is something that's used to compress our power as melanated people. Yeah, I feel like that's what depression is. It's a compressor on the strengths, compressor on your abilities, or what you think your abilities is. It's like when you put a flea in a jar, because fleas, you know, they tiny, but they could jump up to 12 feet in the air. A lot of people don't know that. You put a flea in a jar for a full day, and however tall that jar was, for like a week, that flea is only gonna jump that high until it realizes that it could jump to its full potential again. And I feel like we're not fleas, but metaphorically speaking, we are those fleas. Like, how are we supposed to reach these heights when all we've been told is that we can't all these years? You get what I'm saying? Or we not supposed to, it's against the law, or, you know what I mean?
I had some depressing moments. Shit, I grew up on my own. I was emancipated at like 16, 17. My mom went to the pen early. And I ain't live with my dad like that, so it was just like I'm out here learning and experiencing. But now, as a father myself, I understand that, like, you know, it's what you make it. It's what you make it, yeah. My mama always taught me on some shit like, don't look like what you going through. That shit fucked me up. I couldn't understand that shit when I was young. I couldn't understand that shit, bro. I was like, what? Okay. Don't look like what you going through. That shit stuck with me. I'm 25.
It's kind of like stress, feeling uncomfortable, but it's a deep feeling of sadness and sorrow. Like, I guess you could say, like, that you just, a sadness and sorrow that you feel like you just can't shake at times, or sometimes all the time, I guess. And I believe I have experienced it on different occasions, whether it be from losing someone close to me, or problems in my personal relationships. And yeah.
Depression to me is this dark cloud that just lingers over you. It's also the devil. But this dark cloud, and you just feel like gross inside, and you have no motivation. And for some of us, we might even be like, we're just gonna check out and end it all, because what are we really doing here? Yeah, depression for me is it's a dark thing. It's a dangerous thing. It's Russian roulette essentially. And I have experienced depression. I'm actually like transitioning or segueing from just being severely depressed. Yeah, so yeah, depression is very relevant in my life.
I don't know if it's ever made, I don't think it's ever made me feel negatively about myself. but it has got me down because I know it's a lot of people who don't know their worth, you know. So knowing that it's other, you know, black boys, black men, or black women who, you know, got sons and husbands and stuff looking at these things that might be influenced by it, you know, that hurts, you know. But for me, it was never an issue. Like I said, like, you know, my dad and my mom really were imperative and like instilling those values, like, and me and my sister, like, black is beautiful, like, you're strong, all of this kind of stuff. So I never had to really deal with that portion of it. It was more so like, my thing was like, how can I convince these people, you know, that we all have this greatness, you know, or we all come from this and we all got the ability to do great things. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was more so where mine came in.
Definitely has. You can place yourself in those stereotypes, and it can really take you in a bad place. It can lead you to a depression. And doing that only makes it worse on yourself because, like I said before, you can't compare yourself to anybody else. You have to make sure you're the best person you can be, especially as a black man in America, because honestly, we don't have an easy route. Everything we have to do is to challenge ourselves. So if you don't challenge yourself, then how do you expect life to be easy? Or how do you expect life to take care of you, or you to be able to take care of the people in your life?
No, I don't believe so. Because since a young age, you know, I was taught that society's viewpoint on the world is coming from a perspective that's not natural to my own. And so if their perspective isn't natural to mine, then it'll never line up with me. And so you can't expect it to. And not expecting it to, you know, it don't really bother me. You know, you kind of create your own.
There was a time where I did view myself negatively because I felt like I wasn't doing what was quote-unquote textbook. And once I figured out that there's no blueprint to this, that outlook changed quickly. I went from thinking one thing and I started reading on my own and learning that everyone has different paths. So that changed real fast.
Yeah.